Hi, CJ.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, it is
How are
going
you?
good. What about you? Nice to
It's going
see
well.
you.
Nice to see you.
It's so special. It is.
Yeah, it's going. It's like 11 o'clock here. And I get up really early. So it's been a very busy morning. Like half my day is
Mm.
already over.
Right. How early do you get up?
Usually around like 5:30, 6
Mhm.
o'clock. And what I do, I'm always like dipping around with different time zones.
Yeah, okay, right.
Clients and different stuff. Yeah. And it's like something I talk about in the book too, as far as like a morning routine. So I have
Mm.
like pretty sharpened, polished morning routine. I think it sets the tone for the day.
Yeah, it really does. I really like to get up that early too. And
Yeah. Do
yeah,
you have like a really awesome morning routine going on?
I wouldn't say I have a really awesome one, but I really appreciate over this last couple of years, man, and getting up at 5 or 6 around there. It really
Yeah.
sets the tune and the energy of the morning to have those.
Yeah, you get it.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, nice to have you on here. I'm really excited and nervous.
Don't be
So
nervous. Also excited. That's so cool. Thanks
yeah.
for having me.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for coming on here. CJ Johnson? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. What yeah, just gonna start with well, we're gonna jump into your book a bit. But your history. Uh
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Yeah, do you just want to jump into that and start with that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
What's my history?
Just
I always love this question.
uh-huh.
Um, over the years, I feel like it's always evolving. Yeah, so
Right.
entertainment industry for a really long time, being an independent filmmaker and a professional video editor. That transitioned into digital marketing, advertising. So storytelling has always been a part of my
Mm.
life, my childhood, theater, screenwriting competitions, all of that.
Yeah.
And 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 I was really starting to make a name for myself as being like this on-demand marketing guru. So I was known for
Mhm.
like growth marketing and also influencer marketing when it came to all these like tech startups that were coming from Silicon Valley down to
Mm.
Silicon Beach in Los Angeles in my backyard. And
Right.
and then I became an influencer. So there was all these like really interesting things that were happening with like creative storytelling, but also tapping into like how do like the psychology of humans, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
needs, the wants, the desires, understanding what that was like.
Mm-hmm.
And which leads me to the book is that I always wanted to write a book. I think I hear that all the time. People are always like, "Oh man, I should write a book one day."
Yeah.
And I'm one of those
Yeah.
people. Yeah, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I think all of us are like, "Man, if only people knew." So I
Oh.
want to always write a book, and I'm an artist. I have the spirit of an artist, and
Mm.
what I mean by that is that I wanted to have a visual narrative with the
Mm.
book. I know that you have like an ebook version, but like yeah, the physical element of it, that was like the whole vision in my mind was that you would be like, I have this like pocketbook. Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
that's
Yeah,
the I printed a version, yeah. Like a
yeah,
picture
sick.
so you can see that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like yeah, you just have like something with you, like a guide almost, right?
Right.
And um and what I wanted to do was the genesis for this book was
Mm-hmm.
that obviously like we live in a state of like mental health crisis. It's like a big deal worldwide,
Mm.
globally. But also what I was going through, I feel like I was like kind of at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And it's in a very nasty breakup that like really brought me down to the bare bottom of things. And I made two choices. I looked in the mirror and I said to myself, don't want to like, do my own thing and like continue on this journey that I'm on and like, probably be a playboy a little bit and, who cares, like her loss. Or what I like to take a different route and
Mm,
really like do a deep dive into myself and really kind of understand like what's going on with me, where am I going? So
mm,
it led me on a journey that's still ongoing. I understood that one, I'm curious by nature, but two,
right.
this journey of self-discovery and learning is like a lifelong thing. Like it's not
Mm,
a 2 months from now, I'm like, I'm fixed, I'm cured. Like life doesn't work
yeah.
like
No,
that.
no,
And so I decided to go on this
definitely.
like journey of self-discovery, self-development, personal development, and I did a deep dive. I'm a binger. I am one of those people that
Mhm.
binges on things. And
Mm,
anyway, to make a long story short, I couldn't find literature that talked
yeah.
about what we're going through, like what
Mm,
emerging generations are going through. Everybody that's under the age of like 44, like
mhm.
44 and under, like there was no literature that talked about it. And a
Mhm.
lot of the yeah, a lot of the information that we're
Yeah.
getting is from older white men that
Mm,
are already established.
mm.
So not at all to knock anything that they're doing, but they're coming from a very different perspective, right? So if Tony
Uh-huh.
Robbins says like, get up, motion is emotion and shake your body, or somebody else says
Mhm.
throw your cell phone out, it's like, dude, that doesn't apply to my everyday practice. Like everything you're saying, 100% makes sense.
Yeah.
So then I took it another step, right?
Uh-huh.
Then I was like, I was like, okay, I'm not finding a lot of literature on this, but also it was just strictly social media, blog, email news. It was just all digital. And it's so strange because when you really start doing a deep dive in the personal development space, you'll
Mhm.
see that there's a lot of commonalities. It's almost like just like a giant circle, just like
Mm.
people sharing information with each other, supporting one another, which
Yeah.
is awesome. Again, not
Yeah.
knocking that. But
Mm.
I knew that I wanted to write something raw,
Mhm.
real, use information that was scientifically based, and like through my own personal observations, my own experiences, and really create this story. And that's where I came up with the Maguire Method and these
Mhm.
four core principles. And these four core principles are very simple when I say them aloud, right? Principle
Yeah.
one, questions. Principle two, reflections. Principle three, actions. Principle four, habits. But in the book, it's the complexities of life, right? Like
Mm.
this, like, hey, if I eat well, I know the benefits of that, right? If
Mhm.
I listen to music, I know the benefits of that. But it's like, why aren't we doing these things? And
Yeah.
now in the world in which we live in, it is like a fight against distractions because we're
Yeah.
constantly being distracted to. So I
Mhm.
really wanted to deconstruct that as well and really just
Mhm.
tap into a lot of the things that we're facing today.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, now that you mentioned Tony Robbins, I love that you mention him also in the book and how it differentiates kind of the way that you get into the book and I guess how they kind of tend to have this really motivating energy, but sometimes where it's like I guess yeah, the depth of it. I mean, not
Yeah.
that it's missing, but I really yeah, I like the perspective you just gave onto that. That it's like yeah, it is the anyway, I don't really know where I was about to go around with this, but I really like that I I just really like that example because I think it hit me in somewhere where
Mm,
I'm not really sure what it is maybe, but
hmm.
that I'm really curious on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when I wrote this book,
Uh-huh.
I could have I could write the book. Like I had
Right.
the time and I created all these things for myself where it was like, yeah, I'm writing from a level of success and happiness. But one of
Right.
the things that I really wanted to make sure that I thought was very realistic
Mm-hmm.
and you would know this book readers if you finish the complete book, which a lot of people have commented on, is that it's a very real book. Like it's
Yeah.
not like you find out. these secret ingredients, and then all of
Mm.
a sudden your life is perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the facade, and that's the
Mm.
lie.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
I don't want that. Yeah,
yeah.
what I want is for you
Hmm.
to be like, okay, this is how I empower myself. I get
Hmm.
it. Like I see behind the curtain. I
Yeah.
know, I know the trick. I know the magic
Yeah.
trick. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I can still enjoy the performance of the magic, right?
Right, right.
But now I know how it works. So
Hmm.
now I'm not like in this position of like um powerlessness and
Mm. Yeah.
confusion. And in the world in which we live in now, I
Hmm.
would prefer to give you these tools to empower yourself, first
Hmm.
of all. So that's step one. That's my key takeaway. Empower yourself. And then number two, by you doing that, empowering others. I
Yeah.
have like a whole section in my book where it says like, don't push your beliefs on other people because some people aren't
Mm.
ready for that. They're just
Yeah,
not. They might not ever be.
that's right.
Are you going to be okay with that?
Maybe,
And
prioritizing that.
yeah, I mean, but we're all going to face that. And it's like, what do
Yeah.
you do? Like, you can't
Yeah.
just like judge somebody else for not agreeing with you, even if they're 100% wrong. And we do live in a world now where communication skills are not as developed as they were in previous generations. And I don't want to ever knock generationals. So I hate the generational warfare of like millennials versus Gen Z versus
Mm.
old heads. Like I hate all that.
Yeah.
Or I don't want to use that word, but I
Uh-huh.
don't like it. Because at the end of the day, older generations should be passing down wisdom, and
Mm.
newer generations should be learning from the mistakes that are passed down, and then
Yeah.
introducing new ideas. That's the whole point. Is that that's how a cycle works, but that's also how you break the cycle, right? So we are the generation of change. So we can't talk from this place of helplessness when we have all of these tools and resources to our disposal.
Okay. Yeah, can you say that again? We can't talk from helplessness when
Yeah, we can't talk from a place of helplessness. We can't come from a mindset of scarcity when we live
right.
in a world full of abundance,
Yeah.
right? Like even the access that you have to information, like you
Mm.
know, understanding that like you can find the truth and the truth is there for you. And now the question becomes, what do I do with that information?
Mm.
And then it goes even deeper than that. How do
Mm.
I make this a part of my lifestyle?
Yeah.
And when it's a part of your lifestyle, other people will understand that, and that's usually what attracts them. And we
Yeah.
just live in a world now where we're just kind of like, my way or the highway. Like
Yeah.
you're I'm right,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
that's a barrier
Mm-hmm.
of information exchange because then information is in exchange.
Mm.
Then I just see
Yeah.
things from my perspective. You see
Isn't
things from your perspective.
isn't that kind of the righteousness? Or is that the same?
I would say, and I break this down in my book a bit,
Yeah.
but we put more of an importance on ego and self
Uh-huh.
now than we ever
Right.
have. And
Right.
this isn't like a conscious effort. People aren't out there to like, for most part, people aren't out
Mm.
there that are out, to hurt anybody else. But
Right.
what's happening is we're getting reinforcement of ego and self-importance in a way that we never have
Uh-huh.
before. And
Mm.
that's through social media access.
Mm.
That's the comparison, even again, not intentional, just like on a very on a deeper level. It's like we're comparing ourselves to others. We There's algorithms that are built on platforms to hook us, keep us in. So they would love for things to be tailored to our interests because that keeps us on their platform. Therefore, we are siloing ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
it's this
Yeah.
level of ego and self-importance. And then the big picture
Mm-hmm.
is that each and every one of us creates a narrative, a story. Human beings are amazing storytellers. And the more simple it is for us to understand, the better storytellers we love to fill in the space. Like you see somebody walking down the street and they're frowning, you're like, I bet they're kind of an asshole. Or you see somebody smiling all the time, you're like, I bet they have the best life ever. And these aren't based in reality. They're just based on preconceived notions and stories that we tell ourselves. So
Mm,
we have to like understand, how do we break that down? Like, how do we understand that, hey, okay, some of the stories I'm telling myself aren't real, right? Like, I'm having the worst day ever. Though, really the worst day ever, like in
mm,
comparison to like what, right? Or like, how is it the worst day ever? Was there not a bright spot in this worst day ever? When we're dealing with these very extreme situations that are very traumatic, how do we respond to that like when time goes on? Do we want to disempower ourselves or empower
mm.
ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And I love that you come, or I mean, the example of seeing someone on the opposite side of the street, and and I'm just kind of laughing because I know how much I get myself sometimes in it. I'm like, well, Meta, what is it about that bothers you?
Right.
Yeah. But it is really I'm just trying to think, like reflect back on what I guess what it is that kind of nudges in me to
Mhm.
get to that point of that awareness of, I mean, this is something in me. It's not because they like they don't have to take up the space in my mind, I guess. It's really
Right.
something that I can work on, or there's something, I don't know. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and to your point, I
Uh-huh.
think, this is the reason why I broke down the principles in the way I did, right?
Yeah.
So principle one, it's like asking questions, and there's
Right.
all types of questions that we can ask ourselves. And when it comes to questions, there's bad questions, there's good questions, and then there's great questions, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like a bad question is you're going through a breakup and you're like, why don't they love me? And what could I have done differently? And like, if only we would have done this, would that have worked? But a good question is, what makes me happy now that they're gone? Like, what makes me happy? Or, but a great question, right?
Mm.
A great question is, it didn't work out, but what's the number one lesson that I learned from that relationship that I can take with me moving forward?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
even that happiness question, right? Like, what makes me happy? Be specific. One of
Yeah.
the use it. See, we create barriers for ourselves. Like
Mm.
when somebody
Yeah.
says, how was your day? It's a well-meaning question, but it's so
Mm.
general and broad. And
Yeah.
it you know what I mean? And at this
Mm.
point, you're like, you're kind of exhausted before you even like begin, because and so
Mm.
you're usually like, what? Fine, good, great, it was okay.
Mm.
Very rarely do you say like, hey, actually
Mhm.
this really weird thing happened to me, or like
Yeah.
this amazing thing happened. You're just kind of
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. It was fine. But it's well intentioned. But if
Mm.
we ask better questions that are a little bit more specific, there's a lot more curiosity that's peaked there, right?
Mm.
If I were to
Yeah.
say you know, like, did you have an opportunity to learn something today? Uh,
Mm.
and if you did, like, do you feel like it was something that's going to propel you forward in life? And you'd
Right.
be like, not really. But
Mm.
I'm planting a seed
Yeah.
that you're going to think about that the next day. Like
Yeah.
that's going to cross your mind. You're going
Right.
to, oh,
Yeah. 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 I'm thinking also that I want to ask you something about that too. Because I think something when I kind of a couple of years ago came into started reading self help books, and I think one of the first books were from, anyway, I think that what it was about it is that um asking these questions, I think I realized that just having a twist to the question could be the thing that would be a thing that I started noticing, like the people I would ask, that they noticed this change, and it made them like kind of
Hmm.
twist how they were thinking about that question. Because it's okay, you ask what we, this general kind of question, but it's with a twist to it. So there's like some change to this, and I guess it just definitely helped my mindset as a thing. But I'm curious as to you, where what is I guess what is one thing, like one practical thing, because you are so much about the realistic things, or like being realistic, which I love about your book. Also the the story you meant that you're telling about having your baby.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, this curiousness to have the twist to the question, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's reframing, right?
Right,
And
reframing.
that's
Yeah, I feel
yeah,
like I'm
and
kind of all over with that question, but yeah.
I totally knew exactly what you meant. Yeah, reframing and putting things in perspective.
Mm,
So one of the things, I'm glad that you said that, because that kind of leads me to principle two, which is
right.
reflections, right?
Uh-huh.
So what we want to do is we want to ask these questions, and then we want to, like, jot down these answers. So I recommend always writing it out versus just thinking.
Mm,
When
yeah.
we write things out and we see it visually, it becomes real. Also, when we say it out loud, it becomes real as well. But when it's up here,
Yeah.
it's not real.
Mhm.
It can be easily dismissed because other things happen in life, right?
Mhm.
So when I say reflection, I don't necessarily mean meditation, which is or self reflection. I mean all forms of reflecting on something, right? Just
Mhm.
keeping a little bit of perspective and reframing, the answers that you come up with. And again, you want to ask more questions, and the question process never stops, right? But when you start asking more questions and you're thinking about the answers, then you're becoming more intentional, and
Mhm.
I feel like this term maybe got hijacked, but I still want to say it is like you're awake. You're awake.
Right,
You're
yeah.
awakening your spirit, your
Uh-huh.
mind, your heart, your body. You're awakening. And essentially this is what leveling up looks like.
Mm.
Leveling up looks like when you start asking better questions and you start understanding a little bit more of the solutions that you're coming up with the questions. And one of the things that you do with that
Mhm.
is that you can find out more about your character, your
Right.
values, your principles, and that's your guiding star. That's your guiding
Mhm.
light. So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily, these things of like, later in life I want to get married, or later I want to have kids, or I want to have a house, or I want to have a good job, and I want to make this amount of money, or I want to go on this trip. It's like those are very like superficial things. They're not bad.
Mm.
And I say superficial in the way of that's the lowest common denominator, right? Again, we're
Mm.
storytellers. We like to keep things simple. So
Yeah.
that's but on a high level, it's like I for me, for example, it's like racial equality is a big deal for me,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
So there's boundaries that I have with
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very sensitive to that.
Yeah.
My character, like loyalty, is very important to me.
Mm.
Uh, Compassion is very important to me.
Mhm.
So when you're asking these questions, right, and you're
Mm.
thinking about your answers, how is all of this in alignment with
Mm.
who you are?
Mm.
Somebody that read the book um, messaged me the other day.
Yeah.
They're like, there's this question that you pose to ask yourself, where it
Uh-huh.
was like, would I rather be loved,
Uh-huh.
uh, or would I rather give love or receive love?
Mm.
That was the style of question.
Right.
And the person was like, I understood right then and there that I would rather have it than give it.
Uh-huh. Right.
And one of the things that I thought was so interesting was that there's no right or wrong answer. It's just you understanding who you are.
Mm, right.
That's the reality of it. Because then when you understand who you are, when there's something different between being intentional and unintentional.
Hmm.
Unintentional is like when you do something and then somebody's like, "Why'd you do that?" You're like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And then they have to like you have to like fill in the pieces and the blanks a little bit
Mhm.
later. But there's something much more different, much more powerful and empowering when it's intentional. It's like, why'd you do that? Because da 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 da
Uh-huh.
makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
You know who you are. It's very impressive. It's like people like it's impressive to yourself, but it's also impressive to other people when you
Mm, yeah.
um and when you do that power of reflection, that's what leads into the third and fourth principles of the Maguire Method, which is taking bold action and then taking that action and turning it into a habitual lifestyle routine. So in the book, I kind of break down, why that's like the challenges that you would face, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Fear plays a huge role in this. The fear of failure, the fear of success,
Yeah.
um, and like why don't we make things a habitual routine? Like it, I know it.
Hmm.
Like why, what's up with that?
Hmm.
So I really wanted to talk about those challenges, how you overcome those challenges. But again, the blueprint is like you understanding who you are.
Right. Yeah. 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 Why? Um. Actually, just want to take a moment for that. Yeah. 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 And I love the just popped up into my mind that I guess I actually want to ask you where that come from, um your choice to use the ocean
Mhm.
as the front page.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is a really this is sort of like a bizarre connection that I have with the ocean. So
Uh-huh.
I'm an army brat. So like growing up, lived all around the world.
Uh-huh.
That does play a role. I kind of set the tone early in my book of like of the reader understanding this is who I am. This is why I'm saying what I'm saying. This is what my beliefs are or whatnot. And one of those things was that like I was like deathly afraid of water. It's a racial stereotype for Black folks, but
Oh,
that they don't know how to
okay.
swim. But for me, I was in a lot of traumatic water related incidents. So
Uh-huh.
one being that my dad tried to teach me how to swim by like throwing me in the pool, dunking my head, and that works for some people. Did not work for me.
Mm.
That was like one of my earliest memories of like not trusting people. Trust
Mm-hmm.
became an issue after that.
Yeah.
Um, then later on, I'm a preteen and I'm in like a tide pool at a water park,
Uh-huh.
and my cousin throws me in the deep end. And like I almost drown. Lifeguard dives in, grabs me, pulls me out.
Um,
All these girls are
oh,
around, they're laughing. So I just was like, I don't want to be around water.
yeah.
This is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a teenager,
Right.
17 years old. My family's like, we're moving to an island,
Uh-huh.
moving to Kwajalein Atoll, Marshall Islands.
Uh-huh.
And and the first thing they said is you're gonna have to learn how to swim.
Right.
So I actually had to face a fear that I had for 17 years of my life right
Mm.
away. And
Mm.
I was taught by this hippie woman
Mm.
who taught me how to swim. So I learned how to swim in the ocean with
Mm-hmm.
dolphins.
Oh.
And yeah, dolphins and all sorts of like wildlife,
Yeah.
whales, sharks too. And that was how I was introduced to swimming.
Mm.
And one of the lessons that I understood was not to swim against the current, but go with the flow.
Mm.
And that really impacted me. For the rest of my adult days, I live near the ocean. I live like 15 minutes away. And I wanted to start and in my book in a way with sunrise, a sunset, and both of it. incorporating water in the ocean. And that is why that was
Mm.
such a powerful image to me.
Right. Yeah. Can you repeat that you said what the quote? I feel like that became a quote to you almost.
Oh yeah. It's not swimming against the current, but instead going with the flow. That's
Right.
what I learned.
Oh, don't swim against the current, as in what is now,
Mhm.
but go with the
It's
flow.
like Sisyphus pushing up the big rock up the hill.
Uh-huh.
Uh, it's not doing that. It's understanding that the waves
Yeah.
are always the waves are always going to crash, and they're
Uh-huh.
always going to be unpredictable. You can never predict it.
Mm-hmm.
Like what you can do is you can go with the flow.
Right.
You can understand the chaos, navigate it. You'll never be able to control it. But
Mm-hmm.
the way you respond and the way you pivot and navigate,
Mm-hmm.
now that you have complete control over,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
even that might not work in your favor, but still, going with the flow
Yeah.
always be easier than going against the
Mm.
current.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. That's why. Yeah. And I feel like something now that we're speaking about that, that I have been confused about when people have said go with the flow is kind of this term of, well, I don't want to do as everybody else does, but it's actually because it's not everybody's flow, it's your flow.
correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
110%. And
Oh.
that's kind of the lie. The lie is that everybody's flow should be the same. That's not true. And
Yeah.
that's the reason why it's important that you ask these critical questions of who you are and how you
Mm.
show up.
Yeah.
Because you're going I want you to be surprised.
Mm-hmm.
You should be surprised. You
Yeah.
should be like, wow, I thought that I would care more about this. I don't really,
Okay.
like you should be surprised.
Right.
By the way, we're all individuals. We all have
Mm.
our own things going on. We all have different stories that we tell ourselves.
Mm.
In everybody's story, you're the villain
Mm.
or you're the hero.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you can do about that. Nothing you can do about that. Nothing. Like, that's it. That's just the way it goes down.
Mm-hmm.
You can be the nicest person on the planet and still be a villain in somebody's like story.
Mm-hmm.
And 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 if you understand that, then you understand, okay, I can't care what other people think. I can't.
Mm.
It can't be how I live my life. I can't be dictated by other people's feelings. That's not going to work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But you can show up for yourself and for your
Mm-hmm.
community, for people around you, your loved ones, by being authentic to who you are.
Yeah.
The more authentic that you are to yourself, and I mean this again, not at all in a nefarious way. Like
Mm.
I'm not condoning like, people, taking my words and twisting it into something negative. What I'm saying is that you're able, when you're able to know who you are, through the lens of positivity, through the lens of abundance, through the lens of growth, not
Right.
scarcity, not
Right.
fear, you should be able to do some empowering things and make some powerful changes in the world. There's
Mm.
365 days in a year. That means you have
Oh,
365 days
yes. Yeah.
of opportunities. And by the way, we're in a leap year. You have an extra day this year. So
Oh,
there's so you have excuse. You not only do you have time to get it wrong and
right.
fail, you have time to not do anything.
Mm-hmm.
You have time, but you also have time to do things. Like
Mm.
that's what's so awesome about the gift of life is that when we think of it in those terms, when you
Yeah.
wake up, you have a whole day ahead of you. And when you go to sleep, you're like, I get to start again tomorrow. If I'm so lucky to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's something that you have to like own that. That's
Mm.
powerful. Like
Yeah.
that's
So
powerful.
it is. Yeah. Yeah. And that about surprises, as one thing, I think it's something that when I restarted therapy a couple of years ago, I was like, there's so many surprises about this. Why is there that? Yes, yes, I'm learning a lot. But I really like on the page 203. I want to read something up
Sure.
from there, if that's fine with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Um, okay. It is fascinating to know that we live in a world now where every single question that we might have, there lies some sort of answer out there somewhere for us. Even readily available and accessible, there's literally something for everyone. That's kind of the issue, isn't it? We live in a culture of instant gratification. This is a crucial reason why there is such a lack of effort and follow through with our growth and development as a species. In fact, it is such a big problem that if something were not to happen as you desire, fast and easy, then it appears as if you're doing something terribly wrong. From finding love, landing the perfect job, winning an argument, and making a ton of money to being an undefeated streak of happiness wherever you want. If this isn't happening, what gives? And yeah, that's self-doubt and anxiety. I was just like, when I read this, I don't know, it's just so relatable, which is yeah, you just getting right on point with what you're writing. And for me, as a 22-year young woman, and really just relating to how I often find myself being like, I feel so wrong about how I make this choice compared to those. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. You know, it's one
that's
of the things that I always like to tell people is that what's meant for you is yours.
right,
Like, nobody can take that from you.
right.
And there is this really wild thing about life
Uh-huh.
where where timing, a
Yeah.
little bit of luck, a little
Mhm.
bit of skill,
Oh.
work and balance, where things just work out in your favor more than they will. And then there's times where it's just like everything that you do is not working. And it's like, damn, like, what do I do? I feel like I did everything right.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of theories and advice you're going to get for how to respond to that. What I found to be true more often than not
Hmm.
is to really ask yourself, like, well, am I doing everything in my power to get this right?
Right.
Like, what are things that are out of my control and what are the things that are in my control? Think about it. And again, Maguire method, think about it, reflect on it,
Yeah.
take that bold action and then make it
Right.
habitual. But here's the thing, if you have a great habitual routine, right?
Uh-huh.
It lessens the blow of things not working out. And
Mm.
one of the reasons why failure is becoming a bigger problem right now is
Right.
that now there's an audience to the failure. So a lot of people get scared of even
Right.
starting now more than they ever have because they're just like, oh shit, like people know, as soon as I put a book out, it's like people know, like people know that I have a book out. Like people know, like this could go terribly wrong or this could go terribly right, but people will always know.
Mm.
And we live in a world now where like that self-importance, that ego is
Hmm.
playing such a big role. And it's like at the end of the day, one, people don't really give a shit. Like they care about themselves, they care about their orbit, their life. They are not losing sleep over CJ and CJ's problems. In fact, they're probably thinking about me even so much more less than what I think that I probably should be doing more to be in their space.
Right.
And that's one of the things that you always have to think about is like that story that you tell yourself.
Right.
So yeah, I go into a coffee shop and I go get a latte. I like to go, I'm a big coffee shop guy.
Yeah.
And they take too long with my latte. And I'm just like, just exhausted. And then, but at the same time, it's like, dude, like I should be blessed that that's even a thing. Like that's even a thing that I can do. Like that's even a blessing that that's a part of like my daily routine or that like somebody like I'm getting a latte. Like the year is 2024 and like I can get a latte. I can get on my mobile device. I got shit I got to do
Mhm.
anyway. I can't, like, why is that such an inconvenience where I got to be like, oh, yeah, it's like, be blessed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it can really be, yeah, that's such a moment to have for oneself.
Yeah. Or, and the thing, and another thing
Yeah.
too is that the
Uh-huh.
things that